My name is Joseph Cofield, and some call me Mr. Constitution because they uh, claim that this is the only thing I can talk about is Constitution. And of course, my wife, she professes that I even talk about it in my sleep and then while I'm at bed, in the bed. So, yes, I am all about the United States Constitution, have been doing this since 2014, and I found that to be one of my passions after leaving the military for 21 years, being in the military for 21 years, and of course, being in a teaching profession for 15 years. And I found something that was near and dear to my heart, and that was giving out the United States Constitution. What happened, Martha, is that I had a student that went and got his citizenship, and he went down to Tampa, Florida, and I went to the ceremony, and I was so touched that from country A to country Z, the people were so thrilled about becoming new citizens. And when I hear the stories about how long it took them to study for those 100 questions and how much time and energy and money they put into it, and I said, "Wow, you know." Jay Leonard always goes on the street and he asks questions about how many uh, branches of government do we have? And people say anything from 8 to 20 to 30. And I said, wow, that's crazy. We only have three branches of government. and, and I said, that's a basic question everybody should know: the executive branch, the a legislature branch, and the judiciary branch. And I said, wow, that's crazy. And and I got to back up 1 second because when I was teaching, I had the opportunity to get selected for the Jane Madison Fellowship. And this is an award where they select a teacher from each state to go and represent their state in order to learn more about the United States Constitution. And of course, if you're successful, you get a chance to earn your master's degree. And I was fortunate enough to be selected, and it was such a great honor that when I left Georgetown University, I said to myself, you know, there's something that I got to give back some more because when I before I went to Georgetown, I knew that I knew a lot about the United States Constitution. I knew a lot about history, and the professors, they kind of humbled me as they humbled each of the 52 educators in our class, because they gave you tons and tons and tons of work to do every day. And if you wasn't prepared, I mean, it showed in the classroom, and you did not want to be left behind or becoming looking bad in front of your peers. So I learned an awful lot, and I got pushed to the maximum. And I said, we just not doing enough for our students. And I come back and I try to uh, instill more and try to tell the superintendents and the school official how important it is that we emphasize more on the United States government and the Constitution. And Martha, I hate to say this, but I hear the same old story. We don't have time and we don't have money. And I said, that's a disgrace because our kids deserve to know about our country. They need to know about our government and they need to know more. And then nothing against the STEM program, but science is important, technology is important, engineering is important, and of course, math is important, and all the other things. But nothing, I think, is more important than a citizen knowing more about his or her country, how it operates, and why we are the envy of the world. And so, those two things with the lesson that I learned up in Georgetown and the lesson that I learned from seeking my second master's degree, and of course, the story of the little kid that I had in the middle school, and then he went to high school, went, and then he finally got his citizenship and his college degree. And I said, you know what? If this kid from Guatemala can do it, all of our kids should be able to rise to that same high standard. And that's what got me started in this Constitution project. It has twists, turns, deep valleys, and it tested my faith. It tested my belief, and it tested my endurance. And I tell you, because I was not prepared for all these obstacles that was coming in my way. I thought it was going to be an easy task. And when people heard it the first time, they would say, "Well, I don't know whether we need to do all of that." And I remember in my studies that you have to do research. You have to find out whether your theory or the things that you have in your mind, whether it's realistic or not, and it's would it be beneficial. So what I did, I got on my bicycle, and I mapped out each of the 6 or 7 counties that we have in the state of Florida, and my goal was to go, get go to each one of those 6 or 7 counties and map out 27 miles. I start from the uh, school district, and I map out 27 miles. And then what I do is I loop around and I try to figure out how many people can I touch, how many people can I see, how many people can I talk to. Now,
Wow.
I rode my bike 21 miles and I ran 6 miles. Now, that was pretty easy for me, really seriously, because I before I ran 2 marathons, as a matter of fact. I ran the um, marathon in Washington D.C., which is called the Marine Corps Marathon, and then I went and ran the Louisville, Kentucky Marathon. So I was in pretty good, decent shape, and
Wow.
so finished when I finished my task on my 27 miles in each one of those counties, I stopped by the superintendent's office so I can say that I have spoken to each one of the 6 or 7 superintendents. And I told them what my findings was. And I said, during my bike riding or during my running, I ran into citizens of that particular county. And some was parents, some was government officials, some was shop owners, and mostly it was parents that had kids in the school system. And I asked them, did they think that their kids got enough of citizenship or civic education or the studies of the government? And each one of them said, no, we think they need to know more. And I said, everybody, that's a misnomer because the majority of the people said, and when I came back with that data at the end of my tour, uh, I compiled all of that and I told the superintendents what I have managed to gather up. And believe it or not, they was in agreement with me.
Wow. They were able then to go to all the superintendents in the state and tell them this is what you found. Wow. And what was your
Yes.
solution for it?
Well, I don't want to blame this on the superintendents because I know they got a hard job.
Oh,
And I
no,
know
no, of
that,
course not.
yeah,
But I mean, you had to have the data and show them that it was needed. But what was your solution to the problem?
uh, I'm glad you asked me that because this is exactly what happened. When I told the superintendents what I had uh, came up with, and they said, we agree with that. And I said, well, I said, if we would put booklets in the hands of all the fifth graders, and those fifth graders would get a solid foundation with the uh, study of the Constitution, they will move from the elementary school, and then we get to high school where they get supposed to get a little bit more, and they would do much better on the in the course tests. And then when they get to high school, they will really know what they're supposed to be knowing because what they would be able to do now, instead of running away from those history courses or those government courses or those social science, they will be running to them and embracing them because they will feel comfortable. And of course, that
That was very
sounded
persuasive.
great in theory.
It sounded
Yeah, that
good in
sounded great in
theory.
theory. In order for you to understand the end of this story, you have to understand these steps that those pitfalls that I went through. We don't have the money. I said, okay, this is what we're gonna do. Uh, Being that I was a teacher in the classroom, I know that you get those great thick books, those textbooks, and the teacher can't possibly go through in all those books and those booklets in a year. And I know this for a fact because I've been in the classroom, I've been teaching. No matter how much you say we're gonna do this week, this month, this year, you're never gonna get through those all of those textbooks because it's intimidating for the kids for one thing, and second of all, you put the teacher on a timeline where they had to run through a certain amount of material and they don't cover it in deep enough. But here's the solution. You give them this tiny booklet here that has all the information that the same big book has, but it's in a readable form by which the kids can understand it and can be able to decipher it. And and what happened, Martha, is that the superintendent says, "Well, we already have one of these books." I said, "You know, I took the time to go through each one of those little pamphlets they give out. They come from a miniature size where you can barely read the prints to the one where the kids put it in their backpack and they'll lose it because they can't keep up with it. And the other ones that is jumbled so much that you don't even know what's in it, and then it's do not have explained." So I told him what happened is I went and got a elementary teacher that retired. She was a reading coach as well, and I said, "Janet Carruthers, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put together a booklet that has the same material that the people would see if they went to Washington, D.C. and viewed the Declaration of Independence and the United States Constitution. And what we're going to do is we're going to glean 27 questions away from that, and we're going to put it after the students learn the 7 articles and the 27 amendments, and we're going to call it a walk through a journey through education, which you just read." And I say, if those students are able to comprehend those 27 questions and they're able to write those 2 essays in a manner by which they show good understanding, those kids are going to have a very solid foundation. And so, what I did from that point on, after we made the booklet, I went back to each one of those 6 or 7 counties and I gave a classroom set to each one of the 67 counties. Now that
Whoa.
means that, yeah, that means that it was a 25. So every county, each one of the county has 25 booklets at least in their counties there. And
Yeah.
that money came out of my pocket because
Yeah,
I
I'm
said to
pretty sure
myself,
it did come out of your pocket, right?
and I said, if the idea is if I really believed in it, then you had to put some into the game. And you had to put some skin in the game as well. And you
Yeah.
just can't tell people what you think. You got to show them. And so I thought that was going to be enough to jumpstart everybody. But there was still some hard people to convince. So I was invited to go to Pelican Marsh, which is a school here in Naples, right off of Bill and Frank, I believe it is. And it's a great school. And the principal let me have the kids for one class period and talking about the Constitution. But the kids were so enthused that we went beyond the first class period and we took 2.5 class period because the kids wanted to continue. And so I said, you know what? This is great. It's not just about the book now. It's about how I'm going to get to the kids to show the people how uh, what a jewel they have in their hands. And
Yeah.
so, and this is what kept me on the trail is I met a parent in Suncoast Credit Union, and she said, "Oh, that's the kid." He says, "That's the Constitution guy. That's the Constitution guy." And she came over to me and she said, Mr. Cofield, I tell you, since my child had this book, he hadn't been able to put it down, and he has been so adamant about it. And then I said, man, you know what? This is what I knew was going to happen, because now the
That's
prints, it is in such a form that they can read. And you know, Martha, the other thing why it intrigues me so much is that fifth graders now know how to read. Oh my gosh, this was the greatest blessing that could have happened to me, because if you want to know whether something worked or not, um, it's nice to see it on paper. It's nice to hear someone um, put it into a phrase that you understand it. But when a child put it into how they see it and how they feel it, you know they got it. And
yeah, yeah.
when
Very
when it,
satisfying.
that and the kids say, "Oh, mom, that's the Constitution guy." And when she said, "Mr. Cofield, my kid cannot put this book down," and I said, "That is great. That is wonderful." Because the theory is this: when we put Janet Carruthers and I put this book together, it was simply the fact that if the kid read a sentence, they'll read a paragraph. If they read a paragraph, they'll read a page. If they read a
Mhm.
page, they'll read a chapter. If they read a chapter, they'll finish the book. And when they
Wow.
do, they're powerful.
Wow.
And
That's awesome.
those, if you look back and you see those 27 questions that we have, it's geared towards that way. If a kid don't know the answer, then they had to try to figure it out in their mind. And then if they can't, they had to go look back for the answer. And if they look back for the answer, they had to read that whole sentence. And they read that whole sentence, they say, "Oh my gosh, you know what?" And they read the whole paragraph. They got a real good understanding, because when they go to the next question, they don't want to get that wrong. And so they got their memory now is going to kick in.
That's good. That's
And
very,
then,
very good.
and if they
Excellent.
really know it, they're going to get it right back to the section that they remember.
Right.
And
And then they can get
this
it.
has been the key, I think, to my success. I would like to say that that was Hollywood. It had a Hollywood ending at that point, but there was still non-believers out there. Because
Well,
Martha, you
you're
got to
still,
remember.
are you
Uh,
still investing only your own money at this point? You don't have any other investors working with you?
no, that is a great point. Um, I I got to a point where my wife says, "You know what? You can spend your money, but you're not going to send us to the poorhouse like this." And
Yeah, and I want to let the audience know you're celebrating your 39th anniversary, so this did get worked out. But I can imagine that she was worried about you there for a while.
we worked it out, because uh, I went to a program at Florida Gulf Coast University. It was called the Entrepreneurship for Veterans, a Veterans Entrepreneurship Program.
Oh,
And that's what it hit me, that what I had was not just a passion, it was what people call a business, you know. And I kept calling it a nonprofit, because that's what it was, a nonprofit. It wasn't designed for me to make money, it was just designed for me to get books so I can put it in the hands of the kids. And then I began to realize that uh, some people don't believe that a person would take their own money, or that they would um uh, their friends that give them money, they take it and put it into the books. So the Dr. K at the entrepreneurship, she says you shouldn't give up on the idea of a nonprofit. You should continue with that concept. So I was the only entrepreneur in the entrepreneurship program that didn't have what we call a business. I had a nonprofit. So she saw that I wasn't going to give up on the idea. So she said, "I tell you what, we're going to try to turn your nonprofit into a business. So we're going to try to work this angle of it." And as soon as I did it, it hit me that a lot of people don't want to give an investment because they don't know where their money goes. And so I applied for a nonprofit, and I was blessed at SCORE. which is a small business organization, and I think you know a little bit about that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And they went and they tried to help me to apply to become a nonprofit. And so in 2018, with the help of Ron and Bill and the rest of the people from SCORE, I got my nonprofit um, certificate. This is the funny part, Martha, because I went back to those same people that claimed that they could not support me because they didn't know whether I was a nonprofit or not. So I told them proudly, this is my nonprofit ID number, and you can look it up under the state and you can look it up under the federal. And now you need to start sending your money so you can help the kids and help the schools that can't help themselves.
Good
And
for
so
you.
so a few of them they gradually started helping. And then, of course, what I have learned from my 21 years in the military is that when you find one, you can find two, and when you find two, you can find a multiple. Thankful for the Daughters of American Revolution, the Rotary clubs, the Kiwanis clubs, the VFW, the American Legion, and a lot of individuals that decided that they was going to help the schools and help the students get those books, and that's how we was able to survive. Because I have literally drained my money, and my wife has literally said that, you know what? How it works is simply this: it's when the money comes in, I put it in the bank account, and then when it's time to reorder books again every year, I see how much money I have, and then I order the number of booklets that I um that I can afford. And then unfortunately, there's 200,000 fifth graders in the state of Florida, and to get that number of booklets every year is very difficult. But what I did over that period of time was that I did a map. If you ever go to my website, you can see. I, I thought I was going to start off with Miami because Miami has the greatest amount of students. They have 24,000 fifth graders, which is more than some of the states got all together. Well, it was very difficult doing getting those 24,000 kids their booklets. And so I went and I talked with the social studies director and I talked with the superintendent, and they said, well, if you can go and find those supporters, we'll be glad to give the students the booklets. I changed my mindset by going back to the panhandle. And I started from there in those small counties, and I started getting booklets in each one of those counties, and my joy came back because I saw that those counties really embracing it, and they was getting not only a classroom, they was getting the entire grade their booklets, and we was able to afford it because we had the support of the Lions clubs, the Rotary Club, and the Kiwanis, and of course, and I got to say it fairly, our people came up with fundraisers. I had people to go out in front of Ace Hardware and try to sell things, and I had a, a golf ball drop tournament and lots of other creative ideas that we came up, and all the money that we got from the fundraiser went directly back to the booklets. And so when the other organizations saw that we was committed to it, they decided, well, you know what? If Joseph had given his personal money and his organization is doing all these fundraisers and all this money is going towards the booklets for the kids, I think we better help this poor man. And so this is exactly what happened. And then the great part of the story is this. There was some counties like Bradford County that's near Gainesville. The superintendent said, you know what? We're going to fund this ourselves because our kids deserve these booklets. So every year they fund their own booklets. So we knew that every year those that county is going to be taken care of. And then I started telling the other superintendents, look, if this superintendent thinks that her kids are worthy enough, surely your kids are equally awarded. So we had a few more counties that start doing that. And then Martha, this is the great part about it, about little counties, is if you've been to something county, there was an A+ goal, and they even raised their bar up a little bit more, and they started bragging about the how well the kids were doing in civic education. And of course, this made the bigger counties a little jealous because here you got West Palm and you have Pinellas County, Hillsborough County, and and even I got the attention of Miami finally. And so that's when Broward County came up and said, you know what, we can do this. So the Daughters of American Revolution and the Rotary got together, and Maryland said, you know what, we're going to get each one of those kids a book. And 18,000 fifth graders got their booklets in their hands. And that is when I knew that we could get each one of those 67 counties if we stay at it. And Martha, I'm here to tell you today that each of the 67 counties at one point have had booklets for all of their kids. So the objective of having 200,000 fifth graders in the state of Florida with their booklets has been achieved. And now our goal is to every year try to get those fifth graders their booklets so they can go to the middle school, do the work that required, go to high school, take those courses that were required, go to college, go into the workforce, and show that you are a great citizen of, and try to keep this republic strong and alive. That's the objective. And it makes me happy today, especially this year, because um, we just got through with Constitution Week. And Constitution Week is September the 17th through the 23rd. And it seemed like the buzz has been sky high the whole time. Is that they are looking for these booklets now, and they're looking for opportunities. And the superintendents are and the school officials, they're on board with integrating this little booklet into the curriculum, and they also are buying into the idea that the kid take the book with them from the
Yeah.
fifth, from the elementary to the middle to high school, and that's the only reason that that's the only restriction that I have. I say if we pay for the book, meaning Constitution for the People Inc. or the Rotary or the Daughter of American Revolution or the Kiwanis or whoever, then that's the kid book. Now, if the district decide they're going to pay for the book, well, then they can do whatever they want with the book. But I would prefer the kid to have to keep the book going.
Yeah. Oh,
Now,
absolutely.
now I'll give you another scenario of why I know that this program is successful. If you ever been to Henry County, which is one of our 5 counties in the Southwest Florida, um, Henry County has had the booklets for now 6 out of the 10 years fully supported because we had organizations that have helped them, like the Kiwanis Club, and we had individuals like Matt Hudson, who was a state representative, and we had people that said, you know what, we want Henry County to have their booklets. Now, over the period of time, what have happened is Henry County has slowly improved. And last year in 2023, they got 91% in a course exam, which is the highest, one of the highest in the state of Florida. Now, when you think about the population of Henry County, they have a very diverse population. It's small, and I say if those students can do it, there is no reason why everybody in the state of Florida cannot achieve that success. And
Love this
and of
attitude. I
course,
just love it.
I know it's not right. And mother, I'm not naive just to say that one bullet is the cause for all this success. But what I'm saying is that because of the effort they put into it, because of the belief they put into it, and because they have that solid foundation, they're not afraid of any test that's put in front of them. They're not afraid to take on those challenge. And
Yeah.
and I think this is why I'm so excited this year is because I think people are beginning to understand it, and they're beginning to see that dream or that vision that I had in 2009, and then finally put it to work in 2014. All those seeds are now starting to show results, and I'm very happy. And I get to see the world in a big picture. And when we had our conference up in Orlando for the Kiwanis conference, I was able to have a table set up for my Constitution project where we sold the books and we uh, sold my wife a mango preserve and a lot of other things that would draw attention to happiness. And I said, all of our money this year is going to go to Osceola County, which is right next door to Orlando. And so the people say, "Oh wow, I know where Kissimmee is. I know where St. Cloud is." And so they said, "You really gonna give that money all to Osceola?" I said, "Yes, I'm gonna give it to Osceola because there was a commitment for the last 4 years of organization giving monies to get booklets in those schools of Osceola, and the kids are doing quite well. If we stop doing that, what's going to happen? We're going to have a regress. So we need to keep this thing going." And so we made $1,500 as the Constitution for the People. And so I saw the district governor and the incoming district governor for Kiwanis. And I said, we come to Orlando every year. Isn't it possible that if we're all about kids and we're all about the community, and the slogan of Kiwanis is this: one child, one community at a time, and you can make that a big difference. And I said, we can prove that by making sure that Osceola has their 6,000 booklets that they need for this year. So I am proud to say that District Governor Perry, the superintendent, the social studies coordinator, and the school officials, along with the Daughters of the American Revolution and the Kiwanis and the Rotary, came together and decided that 5,760 books, a Constitution book, will be given to Osceola. Now, that
That
is
is
the
a
kind of
dream.
collaboration that's needed. That is the kind. There was so much synergy going on. It almost brought
But you
tears
have
to
the
my eyes to
vision.
hear.
You have the vision. You know what it takes to engage people to see the vision and to get on board with it and to know they have to do it. It's wonderful. What a wonderful advocate you are.
Yeah, and every year I'm very happy, but this year I'm extremely happy because I get the idea that people finally gets it. They finally understand, and I finally decided that what, all of those heartaches and all those coming home wondering, maybe these people know what they're talking about. But then
All the doubts,
every
yeah.
time every time that little doubt come in, then I get people like John Woods that come up and say, um, "Joseph, how's the program coming?" And I said, "Oh, Mr. Woods, it's coming okay," because he was one of the first individual that gave a large donation because he said that and not plugging Mr. Woods because I'll leave out some other people that left, but he came up to me one day when I was in a Rotary meeting, a Rotary event, and he says, "Why don't you order uh 200,000 booklets. And I looked at Mr. Woods and I said, sir, seriously, if I can order 5,000 books, I will be happy. But he said, Joseph, don't you know that if you order 200,000 booklets, that your cost will be less? I could not help but laugh. I was at a point where my wife was saying, you know what? I know you don't have no money in your pocket because she examines all the money that comes in the house, and she know that she ain't gonna give no more, and the organizations are not coming that fast now. And so I said, Mr. Woods, you know what? If you gonna write that $5,000 check, I'm gonna double that. And he looked, he says, I believe you will. And then 2 days later, I went over to his office and I got his money, and then that's when the idea came up with the golf ball drop. And the golf ball drop has been one of our great success stories because what I did was I told the paper I will sell 1,000 golf balls only, and with those 1,000 golf balls, if they would purchase the golf ball for $25, that would buy a classroom set of booklets. And even if they did not win anything, they would have the option of knowing that they put books in the classroom. And then I said, now, if Mr. Wood crushed me with $5,000 and I told him I was going to double his money, so I said, there's still some non-believers out there. So I said, I'm going to take that $5,000 and the people that can win, they can win 3,000 or 500. It worked successfully. It was I was able to set it up, and we was able to generate enough funds to get the booklets, and the people was beginning to see it went beyond the Panhandle. It went beyond Gilchrist County. It went beyond Bradford County, and when you start talking about Pinellas County, and when you start talking about up in Gainesville, and you know when I always say if you can make the Gators believe anything, you can do anything. And of course, the Gator country is where you have the Bob Graham Center there. Graham was one of my heroes. I when I saw that the people in Gainesville were getting a little jealous, I invited him to come and speak as a guest speaker to my conference. I invited Bob Graham, who was a governor and who was the state senator for the state of Florida, to come to our conference. I mean, to our anniversary, and to be our guest speaker. And he was slated to come, but his daughter was running for governor, and he had to give another speech in the West Coast at that time. And but what I did learn from that is that we got the full attention from the Bob Graham Center, and that's when I knew that we was on the right track, doing the right thing.
Yeah,
and
yeah. So there were little spots along the way that told you, keep going.
God must have said, let me go in and help Joseph out because I have more people in the waiting line. But we were blessed to have to generate the support. And Martha, this is what really 30 of the 50 states has looked at our model and said, we would like to try that as well. Yes, I started out in the same concept that I did in with the Panhandle. I introduced those states that was interested. We introduced a classroom set to those states that said they was interested, and then we had states like Virginia that had said, you know what, the Rotary Fairfax, Virginia stood up and said, you know what, we're going to get booklets for. And they consistently do it every year. And then we have Indiana. No, now Indiana, they had made a promise of attempting to try to do the same thing that we did here in Florida. Because, Indiana is not as large as Florida. And North Carolina have gotten booklets in parts of their state because in the honor of my mother and my relatives, I have put booklets in